The end of the week. Yes, it's design day. I'm not remastering, I'm not fixing, I'm actually making something from scratch. And the reason for doing it is pretty funny. But yeah, we're going to be dealing with zombie stuff today. So, look, I'm going to put up a poll. Feel free to take part in that poll. I'm open to you sharing your ideas and suggestions. I'm not going to guarantee that we're going to make it into this, but that's all right. My suggestion to you is grab some food, some drink, because we're going to get into designing a new race for Dungeons and Dragons 5e, and it's a monster race. That's right, it's a monster race. Anyway, shall we get started? Hi, welcome to How to RPG. My name is Fred Weller, and today I want to talk about tabletop role-playing games, Dungeons and Dragons 5e. We are going to design, or I'm going to design a zombie race or species, a playable race or species that is a zombie for Dungeons and Dragons 5e. And why am I doing that? Well, mainly because I know I'm going to have to use it because of my playgroup. My playgroup have some kamikazes, and that can often result in death. And we don't always insist that they roll up a new character, because sometimes it's more fun for them to play their character while they are dead. And so I've done this more than a few times, but generally on the fly. When it comes to, okay, well, do you want to play a zombie? When somebody says yes, usually the first question they say is like, oh, do I get undead fortitude from D&D 5e? Like the zombie has that undead fortitude. Do I get that? And I'll say, yes, you do. But then I just sort of overlay like a template everything else. I haven't actually gone through the process of building it so that it's just something that you can just go straight to, rather than whatever sort of clicks off that makes sense in my head. So today, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do something like that. I'm going to go through my objectives, my goals for this, because I've been doing this quite a lot, and I want to keep reminding people what my goals are. So first off, with the goals, I want to keep races really simple. Races and species should be simple to implement into your game. I do not want complexity that's too much for people to deal with. Either that's a player or a game master. So that is very important to me. Making sure that the races and species have features that are biological. Wow, okay, biological, and we're talking about a zombie. That's going to be interesting. Yes, I know. Not concerning myself with race or species balance. I just want it to mechanically work the way I think it should work. So if it doesn't work like the monster, I think I've done something wrong. Reducing dark vision benefits to about 30 feet, or removing them completely, is certainly another factor for me. But in this case, like we have had races or species that I have remastered and fixed in the past, where they have still had dark vision up to 60 feet, or I've given them blind sight instead of dark vision, or I've given them infravision, or I haven't given them anything like that because I didn't think it made sense at all. So we'll see. The zombie, for me, is kind of probably will end up having some sort of dark vision. Next, that is, make sure the ability score improvements allow for some choice. I like that idea, but I still want to relate it back to the biology of a race or species. We're dealing with a zombie. There's not much to work with biologically, really. Eliminate short and long rest mechanics from a race feature or a species feature. I do not like them. If you can't use it all the time, don't give it to somebody. Okay, it's obviously too strong. Removing bonus actions and reactions from race features. I know this comes up very rarely, but it does come up sometimes. I don't like them. I'm not a fan of the bonus action or reaction. I think it's just adding another layer of complexity that it doesn't need to be there in the first place. So if you can't do it, you can't do it. If you can do it, you can do it. It's a race or species thing. So it's probably something that's always sort of passively operating rather than requiring you to decide to use or do something. And then ensure that my home group in particular, this is for them. It's not for you. It's not even really for me. It's for my home group. I want them to agree with the changes, and I want them to like it. And the reason being is, that many of them have played a zombie in my campaigns in the past. I know it's going to come up. In fact, one of my friends was mentioning playing a zombie the other day. And when I said I was going to be working on it this Friday, today, they're like, oh, good, it's about time. And I agree, it is about time. I want to make the race or species, the zombie, make sense to me. If it makes sense to me, we're on the right track. That's generally how I feel about all of this. Now, I'm going to be keeping an eye on the chat. Now, today, because of I started like 2 minutes later than I normally do, as a result of starting 2 minutes later than normal, I did a little bit of preemptive work. So I've already sort of started this process. For those of you who are like, oh, it's going to take forever, right? No, actually, it probably won't take forever because I was working on it, was waiting for the shower and the bathroom to be available. These things do happen, right? In the morning, you think everybody's left the house, but they didn't leave the house. They didn't leave the house. So, hello. There are a number of people in the chat. I highly recommend you use the poll. Fred Huber, hello Fred Huber, how are you? We will need a table for how it resists turn undead. Now, Fred Huber is a patron. The reason Fred is saying this is he plays AD&D, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, so he's trying to get me to make a table so that he can apply it to his AD&D game when I'm building it for 5e. It's supposed to be 5e compatible. I'm sure you can port this idea over to other versions of D&D. I'm sure you could. But I'm not going to do that. It's not going to happen for me. Oscar Gross, how are you? Raised from the grave, that's right. YB 1988, hello, how are you? Are we talking magic animated zombie or plague zombie? We are talking both. It is the same thing. I'm not going to separate them. I want to shove those things together, okay? I feel like that's far more interesting for me, probably far more interesting for your players. Why would we separate the idea of the magically animated and the plague zombie? It's a magical plague that makes you a zombie. It's very easy. So, yes, we're going to do both. We're incorporating both. I've already thought about that a little bit. I wouldn't even say it's a condition. I'm saying it's a race because it will replace all of your racial stuff. You'll see what I mean. Basically, all of the racial traits that you had before are going to get replaced, okay? Hello, Steve Lee. How are you? I grew up with AD&D zombies. We're just cannon fodder. Be interesting to hear how to change it up. Love the channel. Well, thank you. I want to make it clear. There are two basic reasons why I'm doing this. Otherwise, I wouldn't even bother doing this. One, okay, characters die. Okay, that's one of the things that comes up. Is characters do die, right? That does happen. And my group are power gamers. They play hard, and I play hard as a game master. And as you know, you can come across things that can cause a lot of problems. So this is generally how I find it works. Either I throw something at them that's really tough and my monsters kill their character, or the players do something completely reckless or foolish or stupid and get their character killed. This is the only reason why I do it. I'm not the sort of person who's sort of like, you have to build a completely new character, because I've run into that before, and that's how people start putting, this is Bob number 2 or Bob number 3. And I'm not pedantic about how we play our game nowadays. I'm 52. I kind of chilled out a little bit after being taught how to do it apparently the correct way, the traditional way. And I'm not really that much of a traditional dungeon master or game master anymore. So this is what we have here today. For those of you who are still here and haven't run away, zombie traits. You died, but didn't stay dead. Now you are the undead. You still look like the race or species you started out as, with some changes. So your skin is grey and purple with maggots and worms feeding off your decaying corpse. And I think what we're going to, let's go bloated. Let's go bloated body. Body has grey skin Grey skin. Let's do this. Okay, grey skin with maggots and worms feeding off your decaying corpse. Your zombie character has these traits that replace any previous traits you had. So everything that you had before is essentially replaced, and we overlay this. The only thing you really retain is your basic physical appearance. Okay, you are just the husk now of what you really were. So if you were tabaxi, or if you were a goblin, or a halfling, or a human, or an elf, or a dwarf, doesn't matter. This is what we overlay for it, okay? So, disease condition from a bite, yes, but it's going to be a magical disease. I'm going to show you what I have lined up for that. I've already picked out a name for it. Ability score increase. When determining your character's ability score, increase one score by 2 and increase a different ability score by 1. So you can kind of remove the species or race stuff and just repurpose it, or you could essentially, in many respects, leave it pretty much the same. Otherwise, increase 3 different ability scores by 1. One of the ability score improvements must be in Constitution. Now, the idea being that usually with a zombie, if you look at the stat block for 5e, Constitution is quite high. So we're going to push your Constitution up a little bit and have them do it this way. I think that's... Now, there's another reason why I'm building it this way, because there have been some discussions from my group about playing an entire party of zombies. Now, I know that's just utterly ridiculous, and you've probably never heard of anybody doing something like that, but since I have been in groups where we were all gnomes, all dwarves, all humans, and all other things, heck, we even had all ghosts at one point. So all zombies is probably on the cards at some point. I don't know when, but the discussion came up, so that's why I'm making sure to include this as a way of moving forward. Let me just grab some water. Okay, all right. I'm sticking with turn undead into mess with zombie. The backseat zombie. Whiskers full out. Fair enough. Hello, Dungeons and Chronics. How are you doing? Okay, now let's keep moving, because as I said, I have actually written up a lot of this already. Zombies can be aged. Zombies can be any age and last for centuries due to the magic that helps them continue to walk the world. Size. Now, I think we need to have creature type. I didn't include creature type, and I'm trying to remember why. Why didn't I include creature type? I honestly, I'm not too sure why. Did I forget it? Maybe I just forgot to include creature type as a thing. Okay, all right. So the age thing is not an issue. You can be any age. Who cares, right? Size. Zombies can vary. The hat's coming off. I can't deal with that. Okay. Freedom. Let my hair flow. Size. Zombies can widely vary in height from 3 feet to well over 7 feet tall. So select either small or medium as your size. Nice and simple. Your base speed. Now, most races and species in D&D 5e are now 30 feet, but you're a zombie, okay? So we're going to make you a little bit slower. Just a slight. I had put it in brackets before I deleted it. This for me is non-negotiable. If I can't affect, because I had a discussion with some of my group about, intelligence should be lower and this should be lower and that should be lower, and it just looked like a great huge, let's just make just about everything under the sun other than constitution and maybe strength, but mostly constitution, a negative. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted you to still retain some of your character's numbers, but I just wanted to be able to adjust it a little bit and still leave you with some flexibility, okay? Otherwise, it's no longer fun. It's just you can continue playing your character as a zombie, but I'm going to punish you and make your life miserable because you suck at everything. And that's not really what I was aiming for. That was not my intention behind this in the first place. I could do that if I was a dick. And I think some people think that I am. But in this case, no. so we're not going to do that. Okay, that's why I'm doing it that way. But the speed thing for me, I think it still needs to be retained. Now, dark vision, I've put it in yellow because I'm going to fiddle with dark vision a little bit. I have included what is called poison immunity, because normally if you see the stat block for a zombie in 5e, they are immune to poison damage and a poison condition. Now, I'm totally understand when people see this and they think, you've got to be kidding, Fred. That's ridiculous. That's way too powerful. You know, something like the Yuan-ti. You remember the Yuan-ti, Fred? It's like the most desired race or species to play in 5e because of this very fact. That is so good. This is even better than Yuan-ti. But it's a zombie you're playing. I'm not even suggesting that a game master or a dungeon master should let somebody play a zombie every single time they want to play a zombie. This is not how I run my game. I don't expect other people to run their game that way. If you're a player and you think that way, you're in the wrong place. I can tell you now, that is not what I'm trying to do here. I believe and consider the zombie to be something that is optional, that a game master will allow in their game for whatever reason. It is up to them, okay? He or she decides how it will be applied. Maybe it's only ever going to be applied to a character that dies and comes back from death. Maybe it's going to be applied to everybody because everybody's dead and they start out dead. I don't know. But yeah, it is not you just go through and, zombies on the list, I can play a zombie. No. It's up to the game master and dungeon master to allow certain things in. And this is just one of those things. As I said, it's for me and my group because we'll use it a lot. Okay. What do we got here in chat? Strength and con. I don't think that... I looked at the strength modifier for the strength score on a zombie, and the strength score for a zombie is not that great. So I believe that con is probably enough. We're going to get to this, Fred Who, but you were talking about brains, and I had this little percolation in my mind, and I had to eliminate it. I will talk about that more. But yeah, because I started thinking, they should have to eat brains. And there's a reason why I probably won't do something like that, but I'll explain it in a second. Able to communicate with other undead beings. Actually, I was thinking about how to deal with the language stuff because I want them to be able to communicate in some way. Not necessarily with the undead. Resistance to poison and exhaustion. The exhaustion condition. Well, actually, the exhaustion condition kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Immune to poison damage and the problem. Yes, you make a very good point. Now you've made me think a little bit there. YRB. I got to think about that a lot. Oh, it's Oscar. Oscar mentioned it. Oscar. Yeah, so, okay, now I've got to think about that. I'm going to put it in yellow. You can't be... I'm just wondering does that make sense? Poison I get, but could a zombie be exhausted? They don't need to sleep. They just keep going. It's going to be a yellow thing for me. You can't be exhausted. I'll make it clear, I'm not trying to turn the zombie into our overpowered option. If that's what you think I'm trying to do here, that is not my intention. Because if that were the case, everybody would play a zombie in my group. Okay? That would be a problem. So there's got to be some stuff that is negative. It can't be all positive. There are got to be some things that aren't going to work for you. For exhausted, I have to think about that a little bit. But you do kind of make a decent point about that. Okay, now let's go over. I'm going to come back to dark vision. That's why I'm going to leave it yellow for now. undead nature. I think this is actually pretty easy to determine. As a zombie, you don't require air, food, drink, or sleep. You can't be healed by magic like cure wounds or healing word. Now, why would it not let me put that there? Word. Like healing word, or I'll just switch them around. That's probably why it's doing it that way. Cut. And if I put this here, paste, or healing word. So, yeah, you're not going to get your hit points back that way. A healing word or cure wounds. Why is it doing this? Forget this. Forget that. Just leave it alone. Okay. You can't be forced. You can be forced to flee or be destroyed by turn undead special abilities. So being turned is definitely going to be a thing. So we've got to have to make sure we have creature type in there at some point. Yes, you're dead tired. Exactly. Keen sense for finding the living. I'm not going to do that. No, I probably don't think I'll do anything like a keen sense. I don't think it's smell, telepathy, speak with in the mind. Yeah, I think I'm going to keep that fairly limited. Dead tired. Give it a putrid and rotting nature would be poison, disease, risk. So there is a zombie rot. You might see that I haven't written anything there. Okay, now, undead nature. When I was thinking about undead nature, going back to Fred Huber's mind and thoughts, is I was about to write in, and then I stopped myself, and I'll explain why. I was about to write into undead nature. To regain hit points, you have to take a short or a long rest. And then I realized I don't need to add that. It should be obvious. You can regain hit points by taking a short and long rest. I don't need to state something like that. But I was going to write something like this. Every time you eat a brain, you can regain 1 hit point. And then I sat there on the toilet while I was thinking about whether I could get it out. And I realized how stupid an idea that would be. The problem with insisting that they have to eat brains to get hit points back is that I have players who would accommodate that particular request. If I incorporate it into the game as part of being a zombie, they will go around eating people's brains left, right, and center, and they will have a great time. And I don't want to encourage that because it would essentially probably derail and cause a lot of trouble for the other players who aren't playing a zombie. And I don't really want to do that. It will force them to have to kill off the character playing the zombie. So if I do that, that would be a problem. So if you're going to play a playable zombie in your campaign, it has to be in some way different to the monster zombie. They still retain the ability to control themselves. You know, they aren't driven necessarily to just go willy-nilly running around, chomping down on everybody under the sun. I suppose you could say, yes, but Fred, they could at least go and eat an animal brain. They don't have to eat people's brains or elf brains or dwarf brains, and I totally get that. But again, I don't think I want to include that in there. They can still do that sort of thing, but I'm not going to have that there. I think part of being a zombie and not being able to be healed by magic, like healing word and cure wounds, is probably a fair trade-off considering the other stuff that's going with it, and it's kind of how the zombie monster stat block works anyway. So I realized having them eat brains to regain hit points was going to cause me more trouble as a game master or dungeon master than it should, that I would be willing to put up with, and the other players at the table would not appreciate it, so I'm not going to include it. Okay. Dear. Now, let's go down to here. I haven't actually started writing up zombie rot, but I will. Next is Undead Fortitude. For those of you who are wondering, am I going to include Undead Fortitude? And yes, I most certainly will be including Undead Fortitude. I just need to rewrite it. I know what you're thinking. The problem with Undead Fortitude is they're probably going to be really hard to destroy and kill. And I agree, that's probably true, but I still think this is a clever way of duplicating the concept that you are undead. You know, you're dead already. You already died, and now you came back as a zombie. If you wind up getting back up and you're a zombie, who gives a toss? I mean, it really doesn't matter at that point. I think, if anything, it's more of the hilarity about it. Let's get real. There's no, if you're going to play a playable zombie in Dungeons and Dragons in a campaign, you're not going to necessarily stay a zombie forever. It's only a matter of time before you're going to get killed and you're going to wind up going and playing a new character, or somebody's going to take the body and resurrect you, okay, using some sort of magic, probably fairly powerful magic, since things like raise dead and even reincarnate might not be strong enough to raise you from the dead if you've been destroyed as a zombie. But it's certainly an option later on, right? You could do it. And I think that's probably what a lot of people wind up doing in my group in the first place. Because my group quite often will play from level 1 to level 15 or 16. And I have had groups go from level 1 to level 20 in D&D 5e, which is insanity, but it has happened. So if damage reduces your zombie to 0 hit points, it must make a Constitution saving throw with a DC of 5 plus the damage taken, unless the damage is radiant or from a critical hit. So you can still be killed outright by something. On a success, your zombie drops to 1 hit point instead. So we are going to include it. There it is. I can see I scared a lot of people away when I started talking about this sort of stuff. Look, we're dealing with a zombie. I mean, if anything would be a joke, creating a playable zombie is definitely one. At least it's not a plasmoid, right? Make the hit point recovery as it levels up at 4th. No, Oscar, I'm not going to do that. Sorry, Oscar, but no, I don't agree with level things with races and species. It's never been one of my favorite things to do. It's very cumbersome, and it's an extra level of complexity that I just don't believe in. So I'm not going to do that. Sorry, but I understand a lot of people think there should be some sort of hit point recovery. No, your recovery as a zombie is you're going to have to take a short or a long rest. I think those are the mechanics that are probably best for that, which means you might wind up going down again, okay, or having to sit things out. There needs to be some consequences, because there's a lot of huge benefits. Not having to breathe air, eat food, drink, sleep. You can be on sentry duty all night long. It would be a piece of cake. Like, you know, that's a huge benefit. Obviously being destroyed by turn undead or having to flee is a bit of a problem, but you know, there is this undead fortitude, and you do get a lot of other stuff. We haven't finished yet. Anyway, so this is probably where I was having a little bit of trouble, and that is, how do I make a playable zombie that can still communicate in some way, but still has some consequences of being transformed into a zombie that would still make it fun. So I wrote this, and then I realized my mistake. Can anybody see the mistake that I have made that I did not take into consideration when I was doing this? I'm not sure if you can tell, but it became really obvious when I was looking at it that I was trying to define something, and even though I had defined it, you get one language of your choice. You can't read or write, and the zombie knows one of the languages they used to, they used to know while they were still alive. Zombie knows one of the languages they used while they were still alive, which is fine, but it doesn't take into consideration some of the other things that we might want to do. And that is at least the level of understanding. There is a section in the stat block for the zombie that I think I probably should have included. I can see there's a lot of feedback here. Let's have a look here. Let's just read what you guys have said before I'm about to write in a second sentence here. If the being of the character is the soul, if the soul is there, clerical healing should work. Clerical healing on the soul, correct? No. No. I mean, maybe in your world, Calrel. But no. It's a fantasy magical world. It means nothing. Remember there's obviously something going on here that has allowed the soul to remain in the body. So, when you think about a zombie, the reason they came back to life is usually because of necromantic magic. And there's a necromantic magic. Oh, God. Okay, there's a necrotic magic going on, right? So there's something else going on, and it's not necessarily good, right? It's like having your soul trapped in a vessel or a body along with something else that isn't so good. Does that make sense? So that doesn't mean that just because you're using spells that the body, because your soul is not powering that body anymore, something else is doing it for you. So you've kind of got like a parasite. It's probably going to wind up being like a dark soul or dark entity or a demon or a devil. You're coexisting with something else, more than likely. This is why I don't think that healing is necessarily a thing. As a player, something like that sucks. I totally agree. But again, I'll remind you, I know that my group won't have any problem with this because they would insist that it should run this way anyway, even though they are power gamers. And it's not designed necessarily for you. It's designed for my group. What you do yourself, and you can do this, people, is you can rewrite it. But this is how it's going to sit for my group. Because I know, I've already had this discussion. I know how they would expect it to work because we talked about it. So I can't change that. And that would be my logic, is there are two entities. There's the soul of the original person who died, plus something else that's powering the body. Yeah, would it not just regenerate itch points at an hour daily rate, driven by the undead magic? I think the undead magic is operating on a times frame, just like you were talking about. This is why I'm saying we're just going to stick with short rest and long rest as a mechanic. I'm just trying to simplify it. So, Steve, I agree, and the easiest way to do that is not by the hour or daily, it's just use short rest and long rest mechanic, and that's it. How about extra damage with every melee? No. But we're going to get back to the zombie rot in a second. So let me just type in the sentence that I should have included. So here, you understand all the languages that you knew while alive, but can't speak all of them anymore. Okay, you can speak one language of your choice. Zombies know one of the languages. Okay, so I need to just probably I need to combine these two last sentences so that we're not getting too windy. It's a little bit windy right now, isn't it? So I'll need to sort of condense it all down a little bit so it's a little bit simpler, and then let's go back to the fun stuff in the zombie rot. You understand all the languages that you knew while alive, but can't speak all of them anymore. You can speak one of the. You can speak one language that you knew while still alive, but can't read or write. I think that's what we do. Okay. One language that you knew while still alive but can't read or write. There we go. That's simplified that bit a little bit. Let's move on. What do you got here, Steve? Suddenly the group just jumped up. So I've done the language thing. We're going to do the zombie rot. I want to do the dark vision probably. I should do the zombie, the dark vision now, rather than leave it. If I leave it for too long, it's going to get messy. So let's take this highlighting off and make this is where I'm working next. I've been really sort of toying around with like what is it that I want to say about the zombie, because I mean really your eyeballs aren't really the things that are doing all of the work anymore. I feel like a zombie in its ability to see is not really based off its eyeballs, because its eyeballs are mostly kind of screwed up, aren't they? So here we go. So extra image. For me, undead is an unnatural state outside of the nature. Yes, that's exactly, Steve. This is what I think too. This would have a damage effect on the area around it. Plants start dying, water becomes tainted, food spoils, etc. The lysing. I suppose you could, but it's a level of complexity. It's very Dark Sun. I've run games in Dark Sun, and that's very much what goes on there, right, Steve? That's what sort of, you've got, if you use magic, you lose stuff. If you have necrotic energy or magic going on, then things get leached off. So I totally get it. I don't know that I want to include that into this. This is a first draft, by the way. Primary language. I just want you to pick look. All I want to do with the languages, people, is keep it really simple, as you pick one language rather than many languages, but you understand all the languages that you knew while you were still alive. The only problem I can see with those sentences is if you are starting off as a zombie. If you start off as a zombie in a campaign, or I wind up with my group doing that, we might have some problems and I might have to adjust it. So I expect that under the language section, I may need to make some corrections. Okay. What else you got here? Yes, writing and reading are good consequences to the zombie race. Yes, I don't think that writing and reading is going to be something they're going to be very good at anymore. Living would be uncomfortable in its presence. Probably. I imagine there's a lot of sort of consequences in terms of interacting. You would have to disguise yourself with makeup and clothing so that when you go into town, you don't wind up scaring everybody off. It's like, oh my God, there's some undead zombie wandering around in town, going into the general store to buy stuff. So yes, absolutely. But you can only speak your primary language. Yeah. Yep. Okay. Let's move on to the dark vision thing. You're not accustomed to life underground, so that's not going to make any sense. So you have lost your normal biological eyes when you died, as they decay, rot. Let's go with rot. Decay. Died. When you die. Died. When you die, as they decay. But you still have superior vision and dark and dim conditions. So this is where we're going to start making, okay. So I need to structure this in such a way. I want to get rid of some of the stuff that's here, but I'm like, Now, this is where we've had this discussion before. I don't like making a playable race or a playable species have the same sort of dark vision as the monster. But you're playing a monster. And we did this with the goblin, I think, and the orc. And there were some provisos around that, I believe. This is probably, I think this is definitely one of those occasions where I feel like dark vision is maybe not the right choice. I was very tempted to give them blind sight because I don't think... Let's ask that question in the chat because I'm curious what your feedback would be. Let's ask that question. Advantage on intimidation checks. Look, I don't think we need to build that into the race or species intimidation. I think that is a game master ruling thing. We'll leave that to them. Yeah. So hashtag. Do you think a playable zombie should have dark vision or blind sight? Because their eyes aren't really there anymore. They're not functioning like eyes anymore. Their eyes are like, they're going to be, they might even have a missing eyeball for all you know. They might be operating more on smell and their hearing, if their hearing is still intact. It might be just one part of an eye or one eye, or they have both eyes but they're not fully functional. I feel like their sight is more magical. I feel like if we're going to use dark vision, it's got to be magical dark vision. If we're dealing with blind sight is much more general. I know what you're thinking though, like if we use blind sight's really strong. Now you can detect things that are invisible, and that kind of extends beyond what you would normally understand as the functionality of the zombie monster, the stat block in 5e. Okay? I think what I classify it as it's magical dark vision. It's not dark vision based off the biology of your eye because it's no longer a factor. So we might just rename this and we'll see how we go. Magical dark vision. You have lost your normal biological eyes when you died as they decay. Okay, but you still have superior vision in dark and dim conditions due to magic. Let's just do that. Okay, you can see in a dim light within 60 feet, and I want to keep the 60 feet in this case because you are essentially playing a monster. It's magical, yeah. It's replicating dark vision, but we're just calling it magical dark vision. That's really all we're doing. You can see in dim light within 60 feet of you. I was considering trimming it down to 30 feet, and in the end I decided it wasn't necessary. You can see in dim light within 60 feet of you as if it were bright light, and in darkness as if it were dim light. This dark vision includes normal. This is the only thing I'm going to say. Normal, darkness, and magical darkness. That is the thing that I would like to add there, okay? You can't discern color in darkness, only shades of gray, okay? Actually, you can't discern colors in darkness or in daylight. You just see in grey, in darkness or bright light. We're going to get rid of your color vision. Okay, you can't discern color in darkness or bright light, only shades of grey. Hello, Mary Davis. Nice to have you here. I'm kind of really interested to see what people are saying in the chat there, but I'm pretty happy with what we've done there with the magical dark vision. The range is not outside of what the monster does, and it kind of works similar but not the same. If I was going to rewrite dark vision for the zombie, I would probably write it like this, because it makes more sense that their vision is more magical rather than biology, really. Really, the zombie is more biology magic than anything else, isn't it? Dark vision is the way to go. Yep, I believe it is. I just think magical vision. Steve Lee agrees. So it can sense disturbances in the weave when a spellcaster is near a magical item. Oh, I don't know that I'll be adding that, but I think we can just go with the color thing, and it's going to work in magical darkness and normal darkness. As they decay, so there are stages of decay for how dark vision works. Spill bait over there. I'm not going to do that. I'm assuming the magic of their resurrection is going to keep them going for a while. You're looking for clarity. As they decay, so there are stages of decay for how dark vision. There could be, but yeah, no, I'm not sure that I need to do that. I don't want you to have to track stuff over time, because what would be the worst thing we could do is insist that you track the decay of your zombie. So after a certain period of time, things change. That would just make it horrific to contend with as a game master and as a player. I don't think that's a very good idea. So I don't want to do something like that. What I do need to do is I need to make sure I include this. We're going to do the zombie rot too. I've got to complete the zombie rot. So that's going to give us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different things for the zombie, essentially. Some of them are good, some of them aren't so good. But let's work on zombie rot. And please remind me, I need to make sure to include creature type as you are classified as undead. I haven't done that. But yeah, so this is where I have decided. This is the fun bit. I've got to be careful about this. I don't know if this is going to survive as a good idea, because I know what my players will do. They're naughty people, just like myself. So they will get up to mischief with this if I'm not careful. So this is how I was envisaging the zombie rot. Where is my notes? Here we go. If you bite another living creature, they contract a magical disease or curse that slowly transforms them into a zombie. Okay, sorry, that's my evil dungeon master laugh, for those of you who are wondering. Kicks in as soon as you become yes, exactly. Magical. So magical, you go from whatever vision you had when you were alive. When you become a zombie and you're playing a zombie, you have magical dark vision. So it's a bit different, not completely the same. Okay, so this is this is going to be fun. I can see this causing me so many problems right now. This is probably a really bad idea. But then again, you know, I do live streams, demonstrations of rules, which is a really stupid thing to do, just because of the way the internet works. Okay, if you bite another creature, they contract a magical disease or curse that slowly transforms them into a zombie. Each day, the creature is affected by the zombie rot. They lose 1 more hit point from their maximum until they reach 0 hit points. When a infected living creature has 0 hit points from the zombie rot, they become a zombie. Okay, so I just need to fix this bit. Let's just drop this down to another page so we can actually see it all in the right place. Okay, so and infected. Okay, so this now there's something I want to put in here as a provisor. The zombie rot can be, because this is what's going to happen is somebody is going to go biting everybody in their party for sure. Okay, I will just guarantee that somebody's going to do that. The zombie rot can be cured with cured by removing the curse or disease. Plenty of ways of getting rid of it. Okay, plenty of ways of getting rid of it. But for your enemies, it may be a slow and gruesome death. So each day the creature is affected by the zombie rot. Each day the let's go living creature is affected by the zombie rot. They lose, and I think lose 1 more hit point from their maximum until they reach 0 hit points. So that's the... now, what have I missed? What have I missed with this? There must be something that I have not taken into consideration that I need to add into here. I think it's probably I need to include the fact that I'm going to have to give you some maths around the bite. I think that's probably what your question would be, right? It's like, fine, Fred, now they can bite somebody and infect them with zombie rot, but if that's the case, how much damage does the bite do? I think that's what you're probably going to ask me next, right? And I think that's probably the only thing I need to answer with regard to that. So it's basically mummy rot. Exactly. Where it be? You got it. Did you zombie rot is mummy rot. In fact, we could probably have a look at how the mummy's rot feature works. That could take forever to kick in for some with a lot of hit points. Yes, Mary, it would certainly take a long time. And I know I've just added a level of complexity that you probably don't want to have. Would there not need to be a con save versus rot? Can't automatically affect with every bite? Oh, no, Steve. Oh, I think we go with it definitely works. You bite them and they are infected. Saving throws are fun, but no. This... like, nah. I think this zombie rot is going to be way too strong for that. Steve, your point is my players will probably bring this up, but I don't want to put in a saving throw. The zombie ends after he is destroyed or the source of the power of the resurrection is destroyed. Magical zombie usually do not change and then often repair themselves. Yes, but this is not your same... remember, this is a playable zombie rather than the zombie monster completely. Yeah, I need to include how much damage I understand. So I need to put that in there mechanically. So I will do that. We're dealing with a magical plague thing. So I would much prefer it... Maybe I've been playing way too much basic D&D or Back Me D&D, but I do like the idea of like, no, you get bitten, it's just going to happen. Just because saving throws can be just way too good for a lot of things. I like the idea that a very powerful monster could be bitten by a zombie and only take 1 hit point, but slowly degrade down until it becomes a zombie-like creature. That would be hilarious, even for a game master. That just gives me another monster later on. That's probably worse. Here we go. So let's go monster, mummy. Maybe we can port over some of the mechanics for the mummy rot. Mummies, bring me some mummies. No, it's just the basic mummy has got the mummy rot. How did they structure the rotting fist? 24 hours. Oh, it's boring. Okay, I don't like that. Rotting fist. Okay, so let's make it simple. Let's make it simple. To bite, to attack with your zombie rot, make a melee strength or dexterity. Makes no sense that you would not be able to finesse your bite. I don't know why you can finesse a short sword, but you can't finesse a punch to the face. You're telling me that it is easier to handle a short sword and finesse it than to punch somebody or kick somebody? It never made any sense to me. To attack with your zombie rot, make a melee strength or dexterity check. No, not check. Okay. To attack with your zombie rot, make a melee okay. To use your zombie rot, make a bite attack with strength or dexterity as the modifier plus your proficiency bonus. I don't know why you would not be proficient in this. You are now a zombie, okay? Biting people is what you do. To use your zombie rot, make a melee bite attack with strength or dexterity as the modifier plus your proficiency bonus. If you hit, you do 1d4 necrotic damage plus your strength or dexterity modifier. That didn't get spelt right, did it? Oh, I think there's an O there, isn't it? Necrotic? No. Necrotic. Ugh. Okay, I think I got it right. Okay, so there we go. There's the attack. That's how you do it. That's how you calculate it. Zombie rot. Let us go. Moving forward. Dun, dun, dun. Am I out of time? Pretty much. Let's make sure I have covered all of my bases. Okay, we got our languages, which is kind of restrictive in terms of speaking, but at least you can understand some stuff, but you will be able to speak in at least one language, even if you can't read and write it, which is fine. Undead Fortitude is being established. We know how that works, just like the zombie. Zombie Rot, which is super fun and hilarious in many respects. You'll be biting your enemies left, right, and center. Undead Nature. Here's the problem: is what happens when you start biting the other players in the group. This is where it could get out of hand. I'm a little bit worried about that possibility. We'll see how we go. Zombie. Undead Nature. I think Undead Nature is fine the way it is. And I think we're going to leave the poison immunity. I think this exhaustion thing exhaustion almost never comes up. Like if you look at how the game operates in 5e, it should come up a lot more, but it almost very rarely do you ever see exhaustion applied in your game. So it's probably never going to come up. But there is a thing to be considered in that if you don't need to sleep, why would you become exhausted? But the zombie is not something that apparently hasn't got a thing built into here. So here's my rationale. Hit points are not meat. If hit points are not meat and hit points represent meat and your ability to take damage, that's the meat side of it. Not all of your hit points are that. Some of it is going to be your ability to be fatigued, your stamina. Now you might say, no, but that's constitution. No, because if you look at the definition of hit points and you go far enough back, even now, it's an abstract concept. Even Mike Merles, when they were doing D&D Next playtesting, put it forward. Hit points are a very abstract concept, and that should still stay that way. So it means it could represent your ability to be fatigued. So actually deduction of hit points is as a fatigue thing. When you lose hit points, it's not necessarily because you took a wound, it is because you are slowly getting worn down. So I think we can probably leave exhaustion off, but it is a condition. I'm just wondering, I'm still thinking about it. To add exhaustion in there, I feel like if I was to do that, I would also want to include exhaustion to the zombie stat block. And Steve makes such a really good, interesting point about that. I've never really did I think about that hard enough in the past? I've made zombie stat blocks upgraded that work a bit better, but did I ever include exhaustion? Because maybe that's the monster stat block needs to include the exhaustion condition. Can't be exhausted as well. If they don't need to sleep, why would they need to worry about being exhausted? They're losing hit points, yes, and there's lots of different reasons for that, but it could be magic, it could be luck, could be fatigue, could be meat, could be skill, it could represent all sorts of things. So, okay, let's have a look. If you get resurrected, you can still have some zombie traits or memories. Okay, so you want me to, so what you're wanting to do is you want me to include what happens if you get resurrected. Okay, all right. So I think what we'll do here, as a zombie, you don't require air, food, drink, or sleep. And can't be exhausted. Which means you could force march yourself and you wouldn't get exhausted. Okay. You can't be healed by magic, like healing with So, okay, under undead nature, I think that's what you're... All right, so I need to make sure I do that bit there. The resurrection question, though, is a very good point. I think it needs to go under undead nature. I need to actually say, what happens if you get resurrected? You don't come back as a zombie. I don't think that's what we should do. Hashtag. Exhaustion could be the decay of... what have you got here? Could be the decay state that the zombie... That's true. That's a good point too. That could be the decay state. That's part and parcel of it. Yeah, you're probably right. You're probably right. That could fit into that. I'm gonna highlight that in yellow. But we need to talk about resurrection. I think you're right. I need to make that clear. If I don't make that clear, it's going to be confusing. So let's go here. If your zombie character is resurrected by magic or spells, they return to life as a living to life as a living creature, not a zombie. Would lesser restoration work? Oh, I don't know. Would lesser restoration work? It's a good question. Does lesser restoration include diseases? I know the paladin could probably get rid of it pretty easily. So you could get rid of, as a paladin could walk up to you and say, bump, pop it off. At level 1, they would be able to do that fairly quick. Lesser restoration is a good question. Let's have a look. I don't want to hang around too long, but there's something else I need to include in here, isn't there? Remember, people, when I do these things, you're always welcome to make adjustments yourself. Lesser restoration. Here we go. So look at how that would work. You touch a creature and can either end either one disease or one condition affecting it. So if you used your zombie rot, you could remove the diseased or disease cursed disease, whatever you want to call it, with lesser restoration. I didn't stipulate that it had to be remove curse or it had to be remove disease. I didn't stipulate any of that. So if there's magic that does that, then that's done. So yes, it could work. Yeah. So Mary, yeah, it certainly could work. I'm not going to fall into the trap that Jeremy Crawford falls into, trying to answer everything and do unearthed arcana about how people should rule things, because it's none of his business, and it's frankly none of my business how a game master runs the rules that they see at the table, as far as I'm concerned. As long as the players at the table are happy for them to make that decision. And if you agree to allow somebody to be the game master, you should be letting them have some leeway on that, since you didn't man it up and do it yourself. So play could be used to restore the condition from exhaustion, because then, okay, play could be used to restore the condition from exhaustion, because then it will be repairing the physical body. Now, let me just... Play could be used to restore the condition from exhaustion, because that would repair the physical body. Yeah, I think what we'll do is I'm going to leave it in yellow. I'm of the opinion that it's probably not absolutely necessary, because there is an interplay between the concept of the condition exhaustion and how hit points work. It's just a lot of people struggle with the concept of hit points, I find, particularly if they haven't played older versions of the game. You get resurrected, you can still have some zombie traits. Yeah, well, you might have the memories, but I don't think you would have the traits. They return to life as a living creature, not a zombie, but retain all their memories. We're not trying to take your memories away from your character. Even when you go from the living to being a undead zombie, we're not taking your memories away. That's not what I want to do. That would be forcing things too much. A restoration potion on a zombie. Lesser restoration potion on a zombie. Well, if you use a lesser restoration potion on a zombie, you're not going to get rid of the zombiness. You're not going to get rid of it. It's not going to go. It's. I mean, I think it's pretty clear. If your zombie character is resurrected by magic. Resurrected is not the same as restored. Restoration, less restoration is not resurrecting somebody. Is resurrected by magic or spells. They return to life as a living creature, not a zombie, but retain all their memories. So I think that's probably the best way to look at that. Okay, so I need to add one last thing before I go, because if I don't, I've missed out. And I think most of you have pointed out all of the holes that I haven't taken into consideration. There are a lot of holes. You guys have pointed out so many different things that I needed to take into consideration. Not all of them I've implemented, but quite often that is a product of just design complexity getting too out of hand. And let's get real. Right now, the zombie thing is, I mean, it's got a bit of, there's a bit going on there. There's quite a lot. It's not that simple. All right, let's go down the bottom here. And I think I needed to make sure I had creature type. Let's just go here. I'm going to just make sure. So I'm putting it after the ability score. Apparently I am. Okay. All right. All right. Let's do that. So it's going to go here. And we need to make sure we are classifying ourselves as a creature type. You are a undead creature. Okay, so bold that. Cool. Bum bum bum. Ra la 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 la. Okay, so we've got it all, and there's this one little section which was the exhaustion thing. I'm going to think about that a little bit more. I think at this point, I still want my players to look at this before I put this up onto Patreon, but my intention is to put up, because we've done the zombie. So I've done the zombie, and I've done it just for exhaustion. Oh, just for exhaustion. Oh, yeah. I think a lesser restoration potion on a zombie that becomes exhausted, I think that would be I think that makes perfect sense. Yep, absolutely. If we're going to remove exhaustion as a thing, then you wouldn't need to worry about it. But if it's going to be retained, and yeah, at this point, I think first draft, we're going to leave exhaustion alone. We'll leave exhaustion alone, okay? And we're just going to go with sleep. I think that's enough. That just helps simplify things. That means lesser restoration is an option for you to use it. So we've done the zombie. We've got that done. What else have we done recently that I hopefully will get up onto Patreon? We did the human. I'm going to tell you now, I'm not happy with the way the human came out. I think the human, the way it is, and the way I've seen it in the past, sucks. So I'm not really very happy with the human. And I've been still trying to figure out how to do that in such a way that makes sense. And I have not, because there's a reason why these are in yellow, and there's a reason why there's hardly anything here, because I really wasn't too sure what to do, frankly. Dwarf, we did the dwarf. And I think we can unyellow that. Let's unyellow that. So we did the dwarf. We've got a whole bunch of things going on here. I'm not going to go over it. We've done the elf so far, and the elf came out pretty well. Halfling, we did the halfling. Halfling came out pretty well. The gnome, I think the gnome came out pretty well as well. We did the dragonborn, and you know, honestly, I'm pretty happy with the dragonborn. I think the way the dragonborn came out really works for what I was hoping for. I love the dragonborn. I think it's awesome. I can't call it the dragonborn. It's going to have to be called something else. I'm probably have to put it in brackets, but draconian. I don't know. Something like that? Draconian. I don't know. Keep going, because dragonborn's probably copyright and trademarked. The orc came out as I was expecting it would come out, because it's basically just the half orc, just called an orc. The goblin came out all right as well, for those of us who are not expecting to see shapeshifter in there. It's because I took it right back to the fairy tale. Warforged or mechanoid, because I won't be able to use the word warforged. Mechanoid. Now, if you're wondering, this is going on to Patreon. At some point, I'm going to publish this stuff on Drive-Thru RPG. The mechanoid, yeah, and I still want to test all this stuff too. That's another thing. Moving along, I'm reasonably happy with some of it. I'm still not happy with the integrated protection for the mechanoid or warforged. The Thicrene or Insectoid is going to be called the Insectoid. I'm relatively happy with that. That was a hard one. It really messed with me a lot. Fairy, we did the Fairy. Pretty happy with the Fairy. The Plasmoid Slime Amoeba or Ooze, whatever it's going to wind up being called in the end. That came out all right. I think that's fine the way that it works. And I think I might be missing something. Did I miss the Plasmoid doesn't have languages? Did I miss languages for the Plasmoid? You can see the Turtle. I don't think I'm going to do the Turtle, not unless people want me to do the Turtle. I think doing the Turtle would be a mistake. So the Plasmoid, I'm just going to go here, copy, and yeah, I don't think we need to do any fancy heavy lifting with that one. I think it's just that. I don't care what they take. And that was it. That's it. So at some point I have to return to doing the class because we haven't finished all the classes. There are a number of classes that I would like to remaster or restructure in some way. Thank you, Dungeons and Chronics. I'm glad you feel that I rock. Yeah. Got to feed the kids, no problems. Catching up, yeah, no problems. You take off. Really enjoyed this. Thanks, Fred. Bedtime. No problems in the UK. Totally understand, Steve. Really, really do it. Dragonkin. Yes, it could also be called Dragonkin. What a good point. Draconian might be a problem if it's copyrighted under, what is it called? Dragonlance, right? That could be a bit of a pain. So that might be potentially an issue. But as I was saying, we've got to return at some point to doing the classes because I didn't finish all the classes. Let's just write this down. Dragonkin before I forget. So it's in my notes. And I will be doing that, but I don't know. Well, I guess my problem with doing the Turtle is I really like the Turtle. And I feel like I need to have, do you know how when sometimes you hold on to something too hard and much and you love it too much? I took a long time before I even considered. I'd been thinking for years about what I would do with the Dragonborn. And I have not spent that much time to think about how I would deal with the Turtle. And I wouldn't call it the Turtle because it's copyright, right? It'd have to be something else. Hello, Mary. Thank you for including me in this. I've been playing less than a year with only a handful of games under my belt. I read and watch others a lot on the subject. Well, great. I'm glad to have you here. So my problem with the Turtle is that if I do the Turtle, I'm going to be really critical of myself and I'm going to spend way too much time. I mean, we did the zombie today. That's a complete, we didn't have anything to start with. I had to build that from scratch, right? I spent an hour and 21 minutes going through and building a playable zombie, right? That's just a first draft. Can you imagine if I have issues with it, how I would deal with the Turtle? And I know I would wind up having to spend too much time. So that's why I'm saying it would be a mistake, Derp. Derp is a patron, by the way. I would have to come back to that later, I think. What would be good, though, is I think what I should do is I should put up a poll and ask, what's the next race or species that I should try redesigning? Because I'm not ready to go back into the classes yet because the weather is not quite cool enough. Today is not too bad, but there are days where, because we're in autumn here in New Zealand, and so there's some days are really hot and some days are really cold and some days are just right. And if I have to sit down and do a class, right, redesign a whole class, it's going to take me 10 hours. So that's 4 or 5 hours for every sitting. That's a long time to get through. So I need to make sure the weather is a lot cooler than it is right now. So I don't want to go back to that. But I still have to do the druid. I still have to do the bard. I still have to do the paladin. And I still have to do the warlock. Each one of those don't sound like they're a big deal, but they are a giant pain in the butt. They really are. They are going to be absolutely appalling to deal with. The worst one is the bard. Why? Because it's a bard. It's a Frankenstein class. It always has been. And trying to narrow it down to what you think the bard should be. So many people I've always come across have got very different views. In my own home group, the view of the bard is contentious. So this is a problem for me. The bard is a problem for me. The druid is so complicated as a playable class. Minotaur. Fred, I really like the idea of a Minotaur. Because I love Minotaurs. A playable Minotaur, going and doing the Minotaur is a great idea. I need to make sure I make a note of that. Thank you, Fred. But I'll put up a poll. If you guys are here in chat and you have some things you would like me to put into the poll that I haven't covered, say now. Because I can only put 5 options into a poll. That's the limit that YouTube gives me. Okay? Fluffy sheep people. Yeah. So Minotaur could be one. What's something else? You tell me that you would like me to try to remaster. At some point, I've got to deal with the Warlock. And the Warlock is... I think a lot of people aren't going to agree with what I do with the Warlock. I feel like the Warlock should just be a sorcerer. But again, to make it sort of... I still want to do the Warlock. I have just to figure out some of the... There's a few problems to deal with the Warlock. I've solved some of those problems, not all of them. And the Paladin has been shiting all over the Cleric for years. So that's another big problem, I think. Goat people. We could do goat people. I don't like the idea of the Paladin taking the thunder away from a Cleric, because really what happens when you're playing Dungeons & Dragons 5e and any kind of version of D&D is playing the Paladin is the fun healer. Now, this is the fun healer, and the Cleric is the non-fun healer. And I don't want that to be the case. They need to be far more distinct in some way, and they're not like that right now. So there's a problem. We could go over at some point, and I might have time to do that in a sitting of like 1 or 2 hours. We could do the epic boons, because I think the epic boons in 5e that we need to have redone, because they suck. They're really awful. These are things you get at level 20 or above, and what Wizards of the Coast provides you with is garbage. They need to be retooled, because I use them in the classes as part of their level 20 cap. There's usually something that's specific to your class, and you get to pick an epic boon. But the epic boons are awful, so we've got to deal with that as well. So I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to go and get on with my day. I'm going to put up a poll shortly, I think, regarding what we should do next in terms of a playable race. I might even include, as part of their voting process, the epic boons. Butterfly people. Fred is just taking the piss out of me now. If you guys hadn't figured it out, he's taking the piss out of me now. Have you ever played a zombie in your games? No, 88%. I'm not surprised. Yes, 5. Fred is crazy. 5% out of 17 votes. I'm not going to dispute that. It's probably 100% true. Hamster people. He's squeakers. He's going to keep going with this. Anyway, I need to go. You need to go. We need to get on with our days. It's getting late wherever you are. I'm sure you've got other things you need to do with your day. So yeah, let me just say, hey, huge thank you for being here. Thank you for watching and listening. Thank you for taking part. I want to thank all of my patrons who support me on Patreon. Please be patient with me. These will all go up onto Patreon. I will get there. I just need to run them by my home group to make sure that what I'm doing they are happy with, because they will pull it apart far more than everybody else can imagine. They are going to be ruthless, I can tell you that now. But they're nice guys still. Nice guys and gals. I still get along with them pretty good. Squirrel people, good Lord. So thank you for taking part in the poll, watching and listening. Thank you to my patrons. I want to thank those of you who took part in the chat today. Fred Huber, who's a patron. Cal Rowell, Derp, who's also a patron. Mary Davis, YRB 1988, Dungeons and Chronics, Steve Lee, Who else has been here that's been chatting along with us? Did I say Calrel? I think I did. I think I said Calrel. Oscar Gross. Oscar, thank you for being here. I do appreciate it. It's great to have you have some feedback and some ideas thrown my way to see if I've left huge holes, which often does happen when you're designing anything. So wherever you are in the world, whether it be the morning, the the evening, or the afternoon, or the night, please look after yourself, your family, and your friends. Be nice to your neighbours. Avon, we could do Kenku. Time to play Kenku. Oh, you mean, I know, the Aarakocra. You're talking about the Aarakocra, aren't you? Avon, you just didn't want to say Aarakocra. I know. Now I get it. Anyway, look after yourself, your family, and your friends. Be nice to your neighbours. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.